What is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad here, your host of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Hey, folks, we are keeping the summer moving along with guests so you don't have to hear me ramble all this time. Today, we are welcoming Ricky of the Ricky Bobati Show. How is it going, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Things are good, dude. Like you said, it's a summer. I'm just out here trying to live and stay away from all this heat and make sure that my kid goes to as many summer camps as possible.
Love it, man. That's the way to do it. And, speaking of the pronunciation of your show,
Yeah,
I think we got to kick it off right
let's
into
see.
the we
It's
got the
the
koozies.
Bo Body Show, not the
There we
Bo
go.
Dobby, not the Bob Dobby. Although all of those sound really interesting too, man. I would probably watch any of those shows as well. But yeah, it's
They
the
do.
Bo Body Show.
Yes. So I will say this because I am a big Office fan, and this was like sneaky good placement
Yeah,
by you.
it's a deep
Let,
cut,
let
right?
yeah, deep cut. You got to tell people exactly where that came from.
Yeah, so there's an episode of The Office where Creed Bratton, who is probably one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character on the series, he kind of falls like ass first into the manager job of the Scranton office for Dunder Mifflin. And one of his first orders of business is nothing to do with the actual business, nothing to actually generate sales or make money, but he wants to create acronyms. And the very first word that he just comes up with is Bow Body. And so, kind of for me, man, I think of it. I'm like, well, that's kind of how I feel about what I do half the time. Is that I'm just happy to be here. I'm just trying to entertain myself and take advantage of the situations that I'm in. So it's the Bow Body Show. Everything that we want to do, we can do here.
Amazing. It's amazing, man. So you are big in the world of Panthers fans, but I know you're also expanding your show, just doing general sports talk, bringing on all
Yeah.
kinds of guests. How are things going for you?
Yeah, it's cool, man. I started as a guest on our mutual friend Alex Bryant's show, Kitty Lit podcast that he created, and he worked really hard to get that thing off the ground and going. And it was a really cool experience for me and him to kind of venture into that together. He's at a different stage in life. He just had a baby. He's got some business ventures on the outside that are much more important than messing around with me and talking Panthers. Um, so we kind of made the mutual decision that I would run with it. And since then, like I said, man, I just really want to be able to do whatever I want to with it. That's kind of the
Yep.
benefit of having your show, right? Is that there are no rules, no limitations. We
Mhm.
don't always just talk about the Panthers in real life. So I try to kind of mimic that with the show. And it's not that we're going to talk about things, that are outside of our realm. Like I'm not going to try to be an expert on something that I have no idea about. But
Yep.
every now and then, man, you get caught up in other things. There are polarizing topics all over. So I like the freedom to be
Yes.
able to kind of get into it, man. And we've had some awesome guests, dude. Like
Yep.
I know you're getting into that now. It's a thing to try to get guests to come on a show that's maybe, and your show is bigger than mine, man. So like for me, I'm like, hey, I'm swinging for the fences over here. I'm the Bow Body
Yes.
Show, and I'd love to have you on.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. I try to connect to people just to learn like how do they bring on their guests, like what are they
yeah,
doing. For
yeah,
me, it's like, oh, well, I'm gonna lean in right now with people I'm familiar with, but it's cool branching out just to see the people that will say yes. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh wait, really? You're cool with coming on? And like,
yeah.
oh, this is great.
Well, that's a beautiful thing about a lot of the people, especially in the Panthers space for us. A lot of our local media is absolutely humble and welcoming and accepting of content creators. And they've been involved in a lot of shows. We also just have terrific content creators on their own in this space. So it's really fun to collaborate like with you. It's fun to just be able to sit here and do that, me and you, without having to worry about the pressure of, oh man, it's a professional. Like I got to be on my A game for this one. Like you and I,
Yep,
man, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to here, and I'm not going to judge you.
that's right. Even when I come in and say Eddie Pinheiro, right?
Even if you
I
said
always,
Eddie Pinheiro, man, I would be okay with it.
I
Like
always
we would have a
have
very
that
healthy
fun.
back and forth, but yeah, I'd be
That's
okay
right.
with it.
That's right. I love it. So some people may not know my
Mhm.
connection to Alex, and
Yeah,
because it's like a very small drop in the bucket, I connected with Alex for the Kitty Lit show at training camp last year. So
yeah,
when I was going to training camp, I don't remember how we ran across paths, but he was like, "Hey man, you want to come on my show?" So that was like the first time I ever went outside of my podcast. So
yeah,
I always like to shout out Alex, and I'm working, like you said, very busy schedule. working on bringing him back. But he was like the first one. He was like, "Hey, let's go talk training camp. You're going
That's
down.
the problem with those
Do
New
it."
York fellas, right, man? Everything's so busy, that
There you
speed of
go.
life. Take it easy, Alex. Get a little North
Hmm.
Carolina back in you.
There you go. So this is just like perfect timing. So like we had been
Yeah.
working on having our show together or doing this episode.
Mhm.
Things happen for me. Then out of nowhere, we get hit up by T Bone of WFNZ out of the Mac and Bone
Yeah.
show at the same time. It's like, hey guys, you want to come on WFNZ, talk Panthers, do a Panthers roundtable? It was fun, man. I mean, I know
Awesome.
we got to, I don't know if it's Willie P that's on the controls that cut us off or what.
Yeah, somebody was so there was some spitefulness going on there. I don't know what it was,
Was.
man. Somebody was a hater in that studio,
They
man.
were.
Yeah,
So
they cut
if
both
y'all
of
go
us. I
back
think
and listen,
they lost both of us, and I think they lost the 8 a.m. guy as well, man. I think
they
he was just
did.
hanging up on everybody, man.
It was like in the middle of the college football playoff
Yeah.
conversation, whoever that was, and yeah, it cuts him off. But so for me, uh, folks that listen to me, I got very lucky, and I always like to say I get lucky because I'm in a very small Wilmington, North Carolina, very small, growing area. But when it comes to like sports media, sports shows, there's not any. So like we
Yeah.
pull in ESPN 99 The Fan out of Raleigh. We have one local show and it's 1 hour every day and it's Randy Slack. And so like I got paired up with him. So I've been on radio a few times with him, but wanted to know like, was this your first experience on radio or with WFNZ or
It was, man. Yeah, that was my first
nice?
live radio spot. I thought it was awesome. I'm born and raised in Charlotte, so the Mac and Bone show, man, is legendary for Charlotte. Sports
Yep.
enthusiasts. They've been around for damn near 2 decades. I think it was 2004, maybe is when they kicked off. 2003, something around
Hmm.
that range. Um, but so I mean, I've listened to them for a long time, man, and I appreciate what they do for Charlotte sports. So it was a really cool moment, man, to be able to come on there and
Was.
do it. I've done a live event before. I did
Mhm.
a draft event this past year where I
That's
was on a
right.
VIP panel and had a couple other panelists on there and stuff like that. We hosted it at a bar here in Charlotte and simulcasted everything. So I mean, I'm used to like the live event of it. But yeah, man,
Mhm.
first radio spot, it was pretty cool, dude. You go tell all your
It
friends and
was.
family. Like, hey, check me out
Yeah.
on Mac and Bone, man.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like my in-laws are in South Carolina and I told them because we were down there this weekend. Like, how do I listen? What do I listen? What do I go on? What show is it? Like, what are you gonna do? And
Right.
so yeah, it's cool, man. And I will say, yeah, it's got to be really cool for you because you Charlotte native, you've been
Very
there,
cool,
listened to
man.
the show. I just picked up their show like I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 months ago,
Yeah.
and it's been awesome for me again, just because I turn on Wilmington. There's not. I could listen to larger ESPN, larger ESPN network, but not
Right.
local
Right.
sports talk. Panthers, Hornets, whatever whatever's going on. So
And Mac
I
and
really
Bone, they
enjoy
get
it.
great guests on there. A lot of local radio people or a lot of local media will come on there and they do really good work, like getting information out to the fans that listen to it. They've built a community, man. And you know how that is. Like
Yeah,
when you're trying to get a show up and running, it's about making it like a community experience for everybody so that they buy into what you're doing. And that's what Mac and Bone do so well, man. So shout out to them, especially T Bone for bringing us on, man. That's a much appreciated look, man. He's a good dude.
he is really good, dude, and hopefully I'm going to get him on here later on this summer. We'll
There you
see.
go.
Fingers crossed. Working on it. So good stuff. Now I guess we can get into a little bit of Panthers talk, and I'm going to try to
Sure.
switch this over if I can. And I had Bryce wowing. And so I saw this pop yesterday, and I'm going to try to pull up the quote to make it easier for me and for us. So I saw this come out, and no, I'm not a great graphics person. I was throwing this together very last minute,
Hey, those
but
things are
for those
hard,
that
man.
they are, man, I've got to figure out a way to just streamline this. I know there's a lot of good shows out there that
Yeah.
do this well. I'm not in that category yet,
Yeah, me
so
neither, man.
so we have this coming out, this report appearing. So it was Jeremy Fowler. He appeared on Sports Center talking through Carolina Panthers and what we're seeing really from Bryce Young and the message coming out of mandatory minicamp. So I'll like high level go through. It says, here's the feeling from the Panthers after coming out of the spring. They believe Bryce Young made 2 to 3 wow throws most days. He was accurate. He showed maturity and taking that easy check down instead of trying to force things. And he hit big plays off of play action. Now, the nuances of Dave Canales' system, footwork, timing, rhythm, that was there, but I was told that's probably going to take a little bit more time. That's what training camp's for. But they believe he's on the right track so far. What are your thoughts, man? And it doesn't have to be necessarily on this, just
Yeah.
maybe the entire OTAs, mini camp. Like, what do you think we're going to see from Bryce or where he's at right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll start it with this, right, with Bryce Young, and that's that it's encouraging to say the least. I don't know how you can take anything other than encouragement from that. And I do understand that sometimes it's difficult to get a fair judgment on it because it's OTAs and it's in shorts and helmets and there's no collision, there's no pads. But here's the thing, man, we didn't see a lot of great takeaways from Bryce Young or the Carolina Panthers offense at all last season. And he was the number one overall pick, right? So when you're desperate for good news, you got to take any that you can get. But I also don't think that it's necessarily blowing smoke on Dave Canales and the staff's part and in the media coverage of it. Because when you do go back in film, there are moments from Bryce Young that are very exciting, in my opinion. Like he makes those out of
Mhm.
structure plays, right, where he can keep the play alive, and the kid's fighting for his life for the majority of last season, right? And he
Yep.
still seems to make a couple of plays where you're just like, wow, man, like there's only a handful, 5, 10 guys in the NFL that I've seen make plays like that in this past season. So you take that and you feel pretty decent about it. And if he can get a little bit more on the structured side of it, which is going to be a lot more on the schematics from the coaching staff, a lot more
Mhm.
on the timing, the cadences, the concepts, right? All of those things have to marry together. And what you're hearing is that that's kind of what's happening. That the
Mhm.
big play off of play action, man, fans clamored for that all last season, right? Like seriously,
It's
we all talked about it. Like get him some help, do something creative that can get guys in space, that
yes,
can get head starts when you're lacking speed. They've brought in the new weapons, they've got new offensive linemen. So it is encouraging to hear it. Now, as far as the wow factor for me, though, what is a wow throw from Bryce Young? Like
Mhm.
that is what I would love clarified, right?
Yep.
Because where I think he struggled and where you see so many detractors for Bryce Young is the deep ball accuracy and then the arm
Mhm.
strength to be able to drive throws into tight windows. Those are also examples of what I would consider wow throws. Like when you see Pat Mahomes or you see Josh Allen and they make these big arm throws, but they're also throws that are like slim margin of errors, right? So their physical
Mhm.
talents are kind of what make them possible to make those throws. What are Bryce Young's? And I'd love to know, did he get more zip on some of these balls? Because I wondered a little bit last year, man, he was coming off that shoulder injury at Alabama and then didn't throw at the
Mhm.
combine, didn't throw on a couple of the offseason program stuff. I wonder, was his arm a little fatigued? And now is he
Yep.
a little bit healthier even? And maybe that can help. And if he works on that footwork and he can shore up lower half and top half mechanics, man, I don't think that this is some wet noodle arm quarterback. I think that I saw Bryce make some good throws at Alabama. So I think that
Yes.
that can translate into the NFL. I'm excited about it, man.
Yeah, me too. I'm right there with you. And this was not planned, but part of the fun of doing this. All the people that listen to me know my general thoughts, and I'm all on the Bryce train. But when you look at this season, I'm curious from your perspective. Do you think
Mhm.
it is a make or break? Is it make and evaluate? Like, how would you categorize like year two for Bryce Young, and what should we expect this year?
Right. It's a polarizing topic, isn't it? But
It
but
is.
I would say it's not make or break. I think make or break would be very unfair, and
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of along the lines of just about any second year player, but
Mhm.
especially with the circumstances that we saw last season. I don't think anyone foresaw it that Frank Reich and that all star staff would come in and struggle that badly to the point where it was a detriment to almost every player that was on that team. I mean, really, outside of what Chuba Hubbard and Adam Thielen, was there anybody on that offense that did even remotely what you were hoping that they could be able to do? Not for me,
Mhm.
right?
Nope.
And even on the defensive side with Evero, he even seemed a little bit strapped because of what the offense was incapable of doing. So how much they were asking
Yes.
him to do. Um, so for me,
So
it's
true.
not a make or break year for Bryce Young, but it's a first year of being able to get a fair evaluation on Bryce Young, in
Yep.
my opinion. I think he has adequate, at least, NFL weapons around him with the addition of Xavier Leggett, Deontay Johnson. I think that Adam Thielen being a 2 or a 3 as opposed to a force fed 1 in the progressions of
Mhm.
an offense, that does wonders. Jonathan Brooks, if he gets healthy, I think that he is an absolute stud if he can contribute in a significant way. Otherwise, Chuba Hubbard, man, I'm fine with. Chuba Hubbard is a capable complimentary back. The Jatavian Sanders draft pick, that's a cool wrinkle
Mhm.
that we haven't had since Greg Olson.
It is.
I am not calling him Greg Olson by any means, but a
Mhm.
strictly pass catching tight end is not something
Yep.
we've had on the roster. Um, and then the offensive line, man. Like you've got all these things in place now where if Bryce looks the same as he did last year, it is completely fair to have concern. If he shows markable improvement, then I think you could sit there and say that's kind of like his rookie season. And if he looks
Mhm.
pretty good, then you can build on him. But if not, then yeah, maybe you go into that third year as a make or break and you say, look, we're not going to extend him. We're not going to pick up that player option. We're going to run this out. We're going to draft competition.
Yep. Quarterback market, speaking of which, is just insane right
It's
now with
bonkers. They're talking about making a salary cap for
salary
quarterbacks
cap
alone.
just for quarterbacks.
That's nuts, man.
It is nuts. But I'm in the camp with you, man. I look forward to him making. I just want him to. It's not me, but I just and he's a very quiet guy, very quiet
Yeah.
kid. He's a man. He's a man. I
Right.
want him to just prove people wrong. Like that's all it is. Like
Me too, man.
just I know he's not going to come out and pound his chest and say I told you so, but
But he
it would just
might.
feel good.
But he
He
also
might
might a little
just
bit,
do it.
right? Like I saw a
Yep.
couple times at Alabama, man, where he was very braggadocious, and I'm like, don't
Hmm.
stop playing with me. That's what I
For
want,
real.
man. And
I
and
do
and
too.
I think that when he gets confidence and he sees things working and he knows that his team believes in him and they're putting him in positions of success, I think you could see more of his personality come out. His personality is always going to be quiet and subdued. That's just his nature. That's his
It
disposition,
is.
right? But he's also cold-blooded, man, when the game is on the line. Anyone that has that ability, in my opinion, also has a little bit of, "You can't mess with me. I told you, man. I'm a
Yep.
bad dude," you know?
Mhm.
Like, that's I
Yep.
think that's just part of what comes with it, man.
Agree. So when you think about stat lines, I don't know if you're
Mhm.
at, if mentally, if you've gotten into the frame of like, hey, season's going to be here soon.
Yeah.
Have you thought about stat lines of like, hey, this would be a really good year if he hit this number here? Or are you looking at it more as like, let's just see improvement? Let's see what the running game looks like.
It's
Do you
tough
have
for me, man.
thoughts?
It's
Yeah,
tough because I'm not much of a, guess the statistics to
it's
make it a
hard.
barometer for, success or failure. But I also do understand why people do that because it
Hmm.
kind of you can look at historically from a data sense where those top, performing players where they land in that range.
Hmm.
And we also have what CJ Stroud did last season as a rookie that will always be linked to Bryce Young. I'm not looking for Bryce Young to come out and throw for 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. That doesn't seem necessary to me. I also don't think it's simply a wins loss thing for Bryce Young.
Hmm.
But if you're able to find this middle ground, I think if he goes for over 3,000, 3,200 yards throwing, somewhere over in that range, right? Which isn't
Yep.
some gargantuan number anymore. There's 17 regular season
Yeah.
games in a season. Um, 3,200 yards, 20, 25 touchdowns, and
Hmm.
single digit interception or single digit turnovers in general. I think that's a smashing second year for Bryce Young.
Yeah.
The progress that it would take to get there would be extremely encouraging if he was able to do that. That being said, I am a disgusting optimist, especially when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. So I don't think that it's crazy, man, that he can't throw for 36 to 3,800 and
Yeah.
29, 30 touchdowns and run for
Hmm.
4 or 5 more. I mean, dude, this is a talented guy. Like, it
It
is a
is.
very, very talented football player. And I think people forget that because he's 5'10" and played with a bunch of, the little rascals last season.
Yep. I'm with you. So I've been like teetering. So unfortunately for me, I started this like series to preview the 90-man roster, and I have
Hmm.
recorded it quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers 3 times. I've had audio issues every time. So I've got my like, all right, I know what I'm going
Yeah.
to say down, but I'm with you. So I am in the camp of like 3,500 yards, 20
Okay.
to 25 touchdowns, single digit interceptions.
Yeah.
And I think people should absolutely feel comfortable with that. Like we don't need him to go out and sling it around for 4,000, 4,500, whatever it is.
No.
I think just let him be the quarterback that he needs to be and, continue to improve. So,
Well, and the
yeah.
hope there too, man, is like you just said, you were going through position by position, right? The hope is
Mhm.
that that next position in line, the running back position, that's where you want to see a really high production from as well,
Yep.
right? Because that's the emphasis that this coaching staff has preached all off season. That's the moves that make sense when you look at it from an alignment standpoint. They're bringing in big fellas to come in. They're
Yep.
they're talking about Aquanu being a mauler at the left tackle. They're making a concerted effort to run the football. They drafted Jonathan Brooks in the second round. That's what they want to do, man. So
Hmm.
if Bryce throws for 3,500 yards and these running backs go for 2,000 to 2,500, combined in that range, that's a
Hmm.
wild offensive production compared to what we saw last season.
It is. I'm with you. And that's like, as I tried to like break it out, I'm like, okay, well, how are we going to be dispersing the ball? Who gets it here?
Yeah,
How does, what does the load look like between the other thing that, as we talk about stat lines and predictions as a creator, call it whatever you want, podcaster,
yeah.
one of the things that drives me crazy, I'm an optimist like you. And even on Mac and Bone the other day, I wanted to give 8 or 9 wins, but I was so worried that people were gonna, blow up the
Call you a
text
homer.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like
yeah.
that is what it is.
Don't worry, I did it for you.
You did it for me, man. The thing that that I contemplated last year going into this, so I would do a preview of a game, and then, well, I guess the conclusion of a game too. But I got so hung up on giving predictions
Yeah,
that I was like debating on scrapping them this year because I'm like, people,
right,
they don't care how much, we spend an hour educating, doing everything we can to talk about whatever
right.
it is, throw out one score, one line, and then people hang on to that. And then I don't know.
It's what happens on any kind of like conversation, debate, or anything, especially on social media, is that you can throw out all the context if you give a finality to it, right? If you put a
Yep.
number on it, it doesn't matter everything else that you just said. Like you said, you could have spent 45 minutes telling you how there's no way to predict a score, but then for S and G shits and gigs, I might say 24
Yep.
13. I'm going to just call it that and we'll see. And then when you get smoked 27-3, they're like, dude, that was a terrible prediction. All right. Well, did you
Yep.
hear what I talked about it? Because I said
Everything
we might get
else.
smoked.
It's so true, man.
Yeah.
It is so true. So speaking of predictions and stat lines, and I'm going to stop sharing this and move over to our man Adam Thielen, who somehow has been a topic of discussion for me a lot in this off season.
Okay.
I'm not gonna. So I originally had planned to. I've clipped a few things. I'm gonna try to see if I can pull it up. I originally was gonna do a full episode on this, and then I just didn't get time to do this. But Adam Thielen appeared on the Rich Eisen show earlier this week. I think it was just yesterday. And I'm not going to talk through, or I'm not going to play every single clip.
Yeah.
But for those that, hey, it's a really good interview. If you want to go out and listen, he talks about the off-season program changing, how he would be in favor of moving it, aligning everything, starting in July. Gives a lot of, honestly, a lot of value into that. I don't
He
know if you
does.
got to hear that part or have
Yeah.
any thoughts on it.
Yeah. I've listened to it. He did it. It was a great interview, man. A lot of
It
gems in
was.
there.
Hmm. So what I wanted to get into, because there is a part in here where he talks about this year, speaking of the offseason program, players for the Carolina Panthers, and we don't know who, but I guess you could go back and look at the roster cuts, but guys getting
Right.
cut who are not in shape. And I was like,
Right.
I want to play this clip and just get your reaction to
Yeah.
this.
And they're out of shape and they haven't done anything. They're getting cut. Like there was a few guys that aren't on the Panthers anymore that came back. They were out of shape. You could tell they haven't done anything, and they're not there anymore. Like that's just the reality. So I just don't see that an issue.
I got to know what you think because I feel like this is just a boil over from last year in the state of the
For
team. But
sure.
I want to hear your thoughts, man.
I think that it's like this perfect almost microcosm, right? Of like how the approach from Frank Reich and that staff just wasn't driven enough, wasn't focused enough, and that
Hmm.
everyone kind of had this carte blanche, do what you want to do. We all know about the ping pong tables being a point of contention last year, right? And look, I
Yep.
I don't know how I feel about the ping pong tables because I also know that these are NFL players. They're going to play ping pong, dude. Like that doesn't mean
Yep.
that they're not doing what they're supposed to, but it is a very annoying thing to hear that click, clack, click, clack, click when they're
Hmm.
giving an interview after getting stomped out by the division rival Buccaneers or something.
Yep.
But the point about not coming in shape, yeah, man, that's a problem. And not to like harp on what you and I have gone back and forth a couple times with the Eddie Pinheiro and the Harrison Mevis conversation, but it's
Mm-hmm.
that being involved, right? It's that being
Yep.
there and being able to be looked at, monitored, and kind of given some directive if they're not happy with where you are at an early point, so that you can get to a place where they're happy and content and feel comfortable with you and know that you're bought in. I'm not pointing that to Eddie specifically, but it's that mind state, I think, that is what Adam is alluding to here. And
Mm-hmm.
when we try to figure out what players it is, right? Like you said, you can look back. Von Bell, LaVisca Chenault, Deshaun
Mm-hmm.
Williams was one of the guys that came to my mind, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because I know that that was Evero's guy that he brought with him from Denver. He had a
Yep.
disappointing year in general last season, I think. I think that they anticipated him being a much more useful player. And then you saw how much they wanted to play a guy like a LeBron Ray, and a couple other guys, Nick Thurman, down the stretch there, because Deshaun just didn't offer a lot. If
Mm-hmm.
he's a guy that came in and did that and was resting on the fact that, hey, man, Ev is my guy, Ev isn't the head coach. Like, this is Dave
Yep.
Canales and crew that came in, and Dan Morgan, that are trying to lay down a line here and say, this is the culture we're trying to instill. I love
Yep.
that, because it also plays perfectly into what Canales and even Brad Idzik, and some of the other guys that he's brought with him, they're very hands-on, man. Like, they are active. They are doing everything. Communication is so critical for them. I mean, they're literally, you see Brad Idzik is out there running routes. He's defending these
Yep.
receivers. And he's not doing it like Sean Jefferson last year, where he threw on a bunch of couch cushions and was trying to get run over by some of these guys, right? He's literally out there showing them, hey, you can't beat me on 3 steps. How are you going to beat that corner in the NFL? So I think that it makes a whole ton of sense, and it makes me feel better about the accountability that this staff, I think, will bring with them.
Yeah. It's totally different. Like, I just listened to the show you did, like I was saying before we got on, and like
Yeah.
y'all brought on some really good points, and I think it's something that from afar, like we can see how much they emphasize, like Canales has said, the guys that are here, the
Yeah.
ones that are working, and they're going to take note of that. And I think that's the reason we have a competition.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's
And
good.
it doesn't mean, though, and I'm sorry, man, I didn't mean to cut you off,
Oh, you're good.
but it doesn't mean either that guys can't be working on their own. Like, I hate that
Yep.
insinuation too, right? Like, there's every possibility that Eddie was putting in just as much work when he was with his brother that he would have been doing here. But
Yep.
I hope he's doing that, not I see him doing that. And
Mhm.
when you're in a fresh situation, like if you were to get a new job tomorrow, right? You probably don't say, I'm going to work from home the first week, right?
That's
You're
right.
going to show up to the office. You're going to wear your best polo shirts or your best button downs. They're going to be
Mhm.
starched. You're going to look sharp, man. You're going to go in there and you're going to say, I mean business. And I want you guys to know
Right.
that. And we can tie that into the bow body. Business is spelled Biznus, right? Like that's
There you
what
go.
we do. So but that's what you want to do, man. You want to make an impression. And the
Yeah.
impression of, I'm not going to show up because I have something better to do. He may not be wrong, man. He may have something that he prioritizes more. But Canales seems like he has really appreciated the people that come in and have prioritized this team more than
Yep.
anything during these voluntaries.
It's so true, man. I'm excited. I just the culture change that's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a breath of fresh air.
It
So
is,
we did
man.
get to hear a few nuggets too. I don't know that I'll play. What did I have on here? I think I'll just play one of these. Oh, maybe I'll play two. Play one on Bryce and one on Xavier,
Okay.
and then we can move on from Adam.
Yeah.
But we did get to hear Adam Thielen talk a little bit about Bryce Young this offseason, so I'll play.
Off your third career 1,000-yard season, first in Carolina, obviously, for yourself. How is Bryce Young looking right now after his season, Adam?
It's been an awesome offseason. And not only him, just a lot of the young guys, a lot of the staff. It's just been a great offseason to just see some of these guys who haven't been in the league very long, just the way that they've come in with confidence. You can tell Bryce's demeanor in the building. He's just more comfortable, right? Like, and you don't realize it when you start getting to be a veteran guy, just because you forget about those times. But I look back at it now, like after being around Bryce the first 2 weeks OTAs, I kind of started to think, man, I'm like, I look back to last year, those first 2 weeks OTAs.
Off your third career 1,000-yard.
Just cut off a little bit.
That was one of my
What do you
favorite
think, man?
quotes, though. And he gets into a part after that, and I thought that was so telling. And first of all, it was like very kind of damning to the coaching staff of last time when he starts talking about he's like the whirlwind of
Mhm.
everything and how he's not prepared. But then he goes
Yep.
into, and this was a quote that I actually wrote down when you said that we would be talking about this interview. This was probably my favorite part of it. Is he said talking about how Bryce looks now in the second year. He says to
Mhm.
see how he's just come back with like, okay, I got urgency, I got confidence. I have comfortability in the system, in the facility, and in the locker room. That is just awesome to
Yes.
hear because A, it means that he trusts the coaches, that he believes in the coaches, what they're telling him, and that he is buying
Mhm.
in to their direction. And I don't think that Bryce got a ton of direction last season from everything that we have heard from media and the
Mhm.
reports coming out. It just seemed like there was a lot of head bumping, a lot of like trying to puff your chest out and be the guy who teaches this phenom how to be a successful instead of working together to get a successful team. That's not what I'm
Mhm.
getting now. Um, the faith in the facility or comfortability in the facility, again, that's the environment, man. That
It
contentious
is.
feeling last year was toxic and it permeated through that locker room. So he is sitting there saying, I'm connecting with the coaches, I'm connecting with my teammates. We are all feeling the same way about what we're here to accomplish this season. That's how you start it, man. That's what lights the fire, right? Like
It
somebody
does.
has to be that kerosene, and it sounds like Bryce is willing to be that tank. That he says, "Hey,
Mhm.
I'll do it, man. You guys can start it right here, and I'll boom this thing for all of us." I love that, man.
Well,
That's the
me
leadership,
too.
even if it's not vocal. That's the mentality of a leader.
It is. Taking that, you take what we heard from Shaq at the end of the presser last
Yeah.
week, which they put at the end of the blueprint, like
Yep.
making the playoffs. Like that's the thing too. It's like
That's it.
people just like we've got this idea that they were so bad that they can't be good, and therefore playoffs should not even be on our mind. And I'm like, these are
Right.
grown men that want to win football games. It's their job to win football games. They're not signing up to go out here for a year and just play
Thank
around.
you.
Like
Yeah.
we're here.
Like they're not some of these guys are 30 years old. They're not sitting
Yes.
here saying this is a mulligan year for me, right?
Hmm.
Like I just got to kind of like take this one on the chin and I'll get back next year. You never know,
Right.
man. Shaq is coming off of a very serious injury, right? And he's getting
Hmm.
his chance to play again. That dude ain't wasting his time just for the sweet story of him being back out there in the process blue. That dude wants
Yep.
to come out and win football games, man. And I don't think it's
Exactly.
crazy that this team can do it. This is not the same team as last season.
It's not.
It is not the same roster. It is not the same coaches. And even the guys that are there again, I don't think that they're the same state of themselves. Like I have a really hard time
Hmm.
seeing Bryce Young, even Icky to an extent, man. I have way more questions about Icky still, but
Yes.
I still don't think that Icky is going to come out and not be prepared like he was last season.
Hmm.
I don't think that he's not going to work his tail off. I think he's at least going to give it the effort that it deserves this year. And you know what? If that's not good enough, then we reassess. But the effort, I don't see being a part that lacks this season.
I agree, man. So I think I have one more, only because it's about Xavier Leggett and his first
Yeah.
impressions. I'll run that one.
Long time you have. So, what was your first impression of Xavier Leggett when he walked in the wide receiver room for the first time?
I just love his personality. He's just a fun guy to be around. Most people can't really understand what he's saying because
I had to laugh at that part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people can't understand what he's saying. But it's
he's
like,
real country, which I think is hilarious. Our receiver coach still can't figure out what he's saying, so I kind of have to semi-translate for him, which is fun. But no, he's just a good person to be around, a good kid. And then then you add like I think I saw a little snippet of the Panthers did like a little documentary deal that they do every summer, and a little snippet of how Coach Canales kind of talks about him and his ability to have that size and length, and then pair that with speed and movement and the way that he attacks the football. You just don't find those guys.
Long time you have.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I mean, look, man, Xavier Leggett, he's a massive human being, right? We saw pictures. I believe it was one of the team photographers, Griffin Zettenberg, I believe. posted a few pictures of Xavier working again right after OTAs. You know,
Mhm.
he was hampered with that hamstring injury. First, it's nice to see him back out there doing his thing. But I mean, this is a big dude, man. Like just big,
Mhm.
big, strong dude. And he's 4.39 speed. I mean, or 4.33, I think. I can't remember exactly what the 40 time was, but 4.3 anything when you're 225 pounds and like built like that is redonkulous. So yeah, he's got the physical traits that not a lot of people have. And he has shown enough nuance in his game from a route running, from a getting off the line. He's got to improve a little bit on that, but he's shown it.
Yep.
His diversity in the way that he can be used, right? I mean, this guy he's a weapon. And I think that we lacked true weapons. So yeah, man, sign me up for Xavier Legette having a major impact. I don't know how polished it'll be coming out of the gate, but I also
Mhm.
think that this coaching staff is smart enough to not do what the coaching staff did last year, where they take a guy like Jonathan Mingo and say, we need you to do the things that our third or fourth year pro number one wide receiver should be out there doing. They're going to know
Yep.
that he's a rookie. They're going to know what he excels in. They're going to know what he kind of has a little bit of trouble in, and they're going to put him in positions of success and opportunity.
I like it. I think it was Mike K retweeted, and it might have been Colin Thompson, former, I hope I said that, former tight end for the
Hmm.
Panthers that does his own show talking about the new kickoff
Hmm.
rules, but
Yeah.
then going in deeper to just the number of touches that it will give players. And primarily, I think about, from watching Excel at University of South
Right.
Carolina, just getting him involved that way as well, which I think hopefully will be
I think that's a
impactful.
great point, man, and I think that's a huge advantage to be able to get him in there. What you can also build some confidence in him, right? Let him see
Hmm.
some success in that. Let him get used to it. Let him see the speed of the defenders that are coming down at him. But it's a almost simulated run play is what this new kickoff rule is, right? You're
It
gonna
is.
have blocking schemes. You're gonna have guys that are firing at the same time that you're firing. They don't have a head start. So like it is a very similar concept to an offensive play, but it's stretched out. So when you talk about what Xavier Legette needs, he needs a runway, man, to get to that top speed. He's not as shifty east and west. He's a north and south. He get him on vertical plane routes, but you get him north and south real quick, man, to give him a little bit of room. Look, he might ride horses, but he also runs like one. So you get him that open lane, man, and let him
Love it.
gallop and hit all those horsepowers, man. He's gonna be hard to catch.
Woo! That's a quote right there, man. Dang, that's that fire. Got to make sure I keep hyping it up so that when I run this through Opus Clips, it'll say, "Oh, that's the one. That's the
That's
one we
the
need to
one.
pick." Go through. That's great. So last thing, I thought about this last night, and I was like, I'm going to throw this in here. Let me see if I can share this. Here we go. And again, graphics people, I'm
Nah,
sorry.
it's
I'm
good,
not.
man. Looks good.
All right, so I had this thought, like, which former, Adam's been here a year, but I was like, let me just throw something hypothetical. But
Sure.
which former Minnesota Viking will have a bigger year for the Carolina Panthers, DJ Wonham or Adam Thielen?
I'll be completely honest with you, man. It ain't even very close to me. It's Adam Thielen.
Hmm.
But I'll give a
Yep.
little bit of context why. I don't think it's necessarily just the stat production of it. But we just heard Adam talking about Xavier Legette, the rookie, right?
Hmm.
We have Deontay Johnson in the room now. Adam was Bryce's security blanket. He was his comfort zone. He was his favorite stuffed animal that he would take with him when he stayed at his friend's house, right? He was the only one that he was
Hmm.
proud to take with him. Um, this year, I don't envision that being the only case. We've already heard about the rapport between Bryce and Deontay Johnson. Adam Thielen is going to be able to give inside perspective on what Bryce likes, how he gets the ball out, where he likes
Hmm.
to place it, what his best concepts are. Like there is a familiarity between those two. Adam is also going to be a demonstration of how to be the consummate professional at the wide receiver position, right? You're talking about a guy, Adam Thielen, who has had 8 straight NFL seasons with at least either 4 receiving touchdowns, right? And then in all
Hmm.
but one of those, he's had at least 700 receiving yards and 65 catches. The only exception being in 2019 when he only played 10 games because of injury. This dude is consistent. He goes to work, he works his tail off, and he produces.
Hmm.
That's the example that I want for Xavier Legette, because what you hear about with him is that he's got work ethic too. So if he's got that work ethic and he has that drive, and then he can see Adam Thielen putting it all together, that's huge. But then on the field, I'm not ready to dismiss Adam Thielen. This dude went for 1,000 yards last year. Yeah, it was force fed and manufactured. Doesn't matter, man. They try to force feed and manufacture a lot of guys in the NFL, and it don't work. Like, what has Kyle Pitts ever done? Right? Kyle Pitts is the guy that they have tried to throw the ball to as many times as possible, and he just doesn't want it. So, like, at some point, man, you can throw a lot of things at people. We saw, and never mind, I'm not even gonna do that. I was about to bring up Clavon Chase on and say, hey, you can throw tennis balls to Clavon Chase and he catches those, but you can throw footballs to Adam Thielen and he catches those, right? So I don't want to sit here and rag on our own players. I hope Clavon Chase works out, but that one was always something that kind of got under my skin. Adam Thielen, though, man, I'm not ready to dismiss him. I still think that he could be helpful. I would love for him to be wide receiver 2 or 3 ideally. But even a wide receiver 3, we've seen Tyler Boyd have really big impacts on his team's offense as a wide receiver 3 because he's playing with dynamic players. That is what I want to see. You know what I mean? And I think that Canales and Idzik can get that to the point where that's their goal as well. DJ Wanham is a cleanup artist, and it will take somebody else generating a lot of pressure and creating chaos for him to clean that up. And Jadeveon Clowney, as good as he was last season, is much more of a run defender and a edge setter than he is a creating a pass rush on his own historically. So DJ Wanham first has to get healthy, and second, he's got to figure out where he's cleaning up, or he has to do something that he has not done in his career and create pass rush on his own. So that would be Adam Thielen for me.
I like it. I'm with you. I think Adam Thielen too, and I think a lot of it you highlighted. One, the health of DJ, and not to get on a tangent, but I know the edge position for you. I listened to you talk about it a few times. It is scary, man. A lot of people want to talk about cornerbacks. I'm concerned. I'm going to hold my breath that maybe things pan out, but we didn't address it, and I kind of shrugged it off in the draft. I wasn't super in favor of we should draft once we got later. But yeah, man, getting that, and to your point, the other thing with Clowney, he came from Nolan's, for those who don't know, big Baltimore fan. That's his team. So I got to see them, and they were just a stout defense in general. And I think that's part of the reason he was able to succeed and kind of drive up some of those numbers. I hope I'm proven wrong on all those things.
No, but you're right though, man. And it's a poignant point to make, because I was a huge Mike McDonald advocate for head coaching candidacy. To be honest, he was probably the top of my list after Ben Johnson. I think that what he was so good at is that he identified what he had on the field. Like even Kyle Hamilton, man, for the Ravens, that was a guy that the coaches before him, and we're talking about very good coaches, couldn't figure out what to do with him. Said he was too slow to play a conventional safety, deep safety, but too small, too slight to come in and play the box. Mike McDonald was like, "What are you doing, man? You're confusing the fact that you got this elite athlete." Very similar to what this Panthers team had did with Jeremy Chin for years, in my opinion. But you got this elite athlete, he adapted to what he had, man, and that's what he did with Clowney too. He put Clowney in the positions to succeed because he put him in run defense positions, but then he had a lot of talent that came in and created chaos along the lines. Look, Clowney is 6'6" with giant wingspan, man. If you let him get close to you, he's going to catch you, and once you get those paws on you, you're going down, man. That's a strong fella. So I hope that our defense, Evero's a smart guy too, man. I have nothing but faith in Evero. I hope that he's able to conjure up some of those similar ideas that he saw McDonald have success with.
I'm with you, man. Sorry, man. My screen bounced off. So we've talked a little bit about a few things here, but again, just perfect timing wise. I originally threw this up in our agenda and was like, hey, let's talk about training camp. Thinking it was going to be this idea of what it would be. And sure enough, we get news today, all the details about training camp. So
I think they did that just for you, to be honest, man.
They did it, man. They're like, you know what? I'm not lying, though. So Panthers PR and then Panthers community, I don't know which two followed me. So I'm sure that was it. They were like, oh, we got to give this guy.
They saw it, man.
But not the real Panthers. The real Panthers are like, I don't want anything to do with this guy. Keep me away.
Hey, you should make the real Panthers earn it too, though, man. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, that's right. Like, why everyone else?
Yeah.
So here we go, man. I'll give my initial little blurb here. One, I
Yeah.
always like to say I am a biased training camp fan because my in-laws lived in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So it was
There you
the
go.
greatest event. Got to see the in-laws, got to go to Wofford, got to hang out there as long as I want. So I was devastated when it was
Oh
pulled.
man.
But you know what? I'm going to suck it up because you know what? It's I think it's greater or a good experience for Greater Charlotte. You know, just being where it is. But
Yeah.
here we go, man. 15 practices back together on the 27th. Fan
Hmm.
Fest at Clemson, which I was with. I know I saw you tweet this. I'm with you, man. That was a very fun event last year at
Great
Bank of
event.
America Stadium.
Yep.
We took Pearson when he was like 6 months old, and he
Yeah.
got to enjoy it. And
Yeah.
then just one joint practice with the Jets. But hey, 15 practices. It is going to be open to the public. We're
Yep.
going to have tickets, but it's no fee. That was the other thing. I will give them
Yep.
credit. I kept saying they're going to charge us, which they
Yep.
didn't charge us.
Yep.
But hey, man, what do you think? We got dates, we got
Yeah.
locations.
I
What's
love it,
happening?
man. Look, you said 15, right? I believe it was 12 last season.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it might have been 12 under Matt Rule as well. So there's 3 additional practices open to the public. I love that.
Yep.
The ticket situation, they did that last year as well. They had the
Yep.
Ticketmaster thing where you had to get tickets, and they say there's a limited amount, and there may be a more limited amount this year than last year in Walford. Strictly
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know where they'll be construction wise with the practice fields and all of that.
Yep.
But I can't imagine, and I live right near the Performance Center for the Charlotte FC. I'm like in the neighborhood directly behind it.
Oh,
And I have
nice.
seen them build 3 fields in a matter of like 2.5 weeks recently. Like they've
Nice.
got, and these are real grass fields, like fences, everything. So like
Mm-hmm.
it can be done. And that's Tepper's business. He's doing the same thing there that he's going to be doing over there. So it's not, I don't foresee that being a problem. But the things that stand out to me, FanFest being in Clemson, I think is an awesome sentimental thing. I think it'll be a lot of fun for the people that make that trip. I won't be one of them. um,
Yep.
and I say that because I did go to FanFest last year as well, and I took my son for his very first time in Bank of America Stadium. He's 5 years
Mm-hmm.
old, and it was awesome, dude. I mean, time of his life, time of my life, getting to see him
Yep.
experience all that stuff. But one of the reasons I did that is because it was in Charlotte, and I could drive
Yep.
home. Even leaving Bank of America Stadium, I was in traffic for an hour and a half, and it was 10 o'clock getting home or leaving the stadium. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
do that and drive all the way back from Clemson. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, just not my jam. My plan of attack is the get or back together Saturday on July 27th.
Yep.
I went to that last year in Spartanburg as well. Awesome
Mm-hmm.
time there. There was a content creators thing that was put together. I believe it was by Rashad and Dave of PNP podcast, the
Mm-hmm.
Panther Nation podcast, and also Vashti Hurt for Carolina Blitz and Sheena Quick, where a lot of content creators showed up at a bar. We all hung out, got to meet each other, and then all the fans came and we all got to like hang out and talk. I'm hoping to be able to recreate something like that this year with everybody because it was
Nice.
such a great time, man, getting to meet and socialize with everybody in our little universe. Um,
Yep.
but my plan of attack for this, since I live in Charlotte,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hit as many weekday practices as I can while all of the
Smart.
bankers and suits are, stuck behind their desk. And I get to grab a nice Bojangles biscuit and plunk my
Yes.
big butt down and watch this stuff without a big crowd. Like that's what I'm hoping for, man. But
Love
I
it.
will absolutely try to make way that if people are coming down and want to get together for certain dates or two, man,
Yep.
let's make it happen.
That's awesome,
How
man.
about you? Are
Yeah,
you planning on coming down for any of it?
so yeah, I think so my sister-in-law lives in Charlotte, but I don't think I'm gonna crash her apartment.
Right. Yeah.
She's awesome, but I'm not bringing
Yeah.
the whole fam down. So yeah,
Right.
we
Right.
were when this was announced, I'd already like talked to my father-in-law, and I was like, yeah, we'll probably Spartanburg's only an hour ish from
Yeah.
Charlotte, so we're like, you know
Yep.
what, still get to have the family time. We just have
Yep.
to wake up, early, drive up to Charlotte and come back. So we're trying to plot like this came out, and I'm like, well, I want to make the most of it to
Yeah.
where maybe I could go for 3 or 4 practices. I'm going to take time off. I'd already like book planned this through work. I
Right.
was like,
Right.
hey guys, when it comes up, I'm going to probably take like a week and, get as many dates as I can. So it'll probably be earlier. I don't know, like the first few days in July and then maybe into August.
Yep.
probably not coming back. So I would love to come back for joint practice, but I don't think I'll be able to
Mhm.
make that. But I'm
Yep.
excited, and man, for me, this year, or I should say, last year when I went, I was just like brand new as far as Panthers content creator, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, and podcaster. And I tried to follow suit with everyone. I mean, Dunk with, like you said, Vashti, Sheena, everyone, Mike K, who tweeted out play by play. And I just
Right.
want to let people know this year I'm not doing that. Like
Right. Right.
I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna enjoy it. I will still gather my general like, hey,
No
this is
doubt.
what I'm seeing. But just for people who may come in, because one, I'll probably have our 1.5 year old at that point for a
Yeah,
few of these, and like I just want to enjoy it a little bit more. Not that it
for
wasn't
sure.
enjoyable, but so I'll do that. But I also like to shout out all the players, man, because they were amazing last year. Like
Mhm.
Nolan has a sign ball of like Bryce Young, Miles Sand. I can't even name everyone, but he got
Yeah,
J.C. Horn, all the big names.
that's
Like they
awesome.
were taking their time signing, and so I do
Just makes his
appreciate.
day too, man, when something like
Yeah,
that happens, and he's got a
it's
piece of
so cool.
memorabilia that he can cherish, man. It's awesome, dude.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like tweeting out the plays and stuff like that. I actually was I went to the joint practice as well against the Jets, and I was sitting. You brought up Aaron Duncan. I was sitting with Aaron and Monty from the 4-man rush, and then my colleague
Hmm.
Jared Feinstein from Cat Crave. And the four of us were sitting there watching this stuff together, and we all had a great time talking about it. And that is another fun part about it too, though, is being able to sit there with other people that want to like really dig into the bones of like a football
Yes.
team, right? Because that's what training camp is, dude. You're not going there to watch the game. It's not as much of
Hmm.
a show as like an NFL game, and they don't have all the great, concessions and all that kind of stuff. It's an opportunity though to get an inside look and try to get a gauge on what you can expect to see. And it was really
Yep.
cool to sit there. Duncan is incredible with this content stuff. You talk about somebody with the
He is.
graphics and stuff, man. And by the way, shout out to him, man. I got to give him some love here because he was featured, a little audio clip featured on Blueprint episode
Yes,
2. And man, well deserved,
it
hard
was.
earned. That dude is a worker and one of the smartest football minds that we have in this Panthers creation circle. So
He is,
shout out
man.
Aaron Duncan, man. What's up, Aaron? What up, though?
Yes. What up, though? Yeah, I've got him on the list of people I want to get on here. But that was so cool. I saw the credits and I saw him like tweet it out too, which was. I always wonder. Maybe I'll ask him when he comes on, or he may have already said it. I wonder if they approached him before they used it, or if they just used it and then gave him credit. Like I wonder
Well,
how involved he
judging
was.
judging from his reaction in the stream, and then what he said, I think it was a surprise, man. He said he thought
Oh,
he
that's
heard it, but he
awesome.
couldn't believe it. And then he saw the
Uh,
credits at the end. He said he was beyond geeked. So I
that's
think
awesome,
I don't
man.
want to speak for him. I would love to hear that
Hmm.
story when you do ask him. But it came across like it was something that they just did and gave him the credit for it.
That's awesome, man. So the other thing I was going to try to share real fast, I did see
Yeah.
there's like a more details page right now.
Oh, okay.
So for those, if you're looking to learn a little bit more, I'll do a full episode for people that follow me talking more about this. But
Hmm.
it is downtown at their practice facility. But if anyone's like, hey, where's seating going to be? What's it going to look like? It looks like they kind of started to map out. And then I know they've got other FAQs on here, but that is
Very
available.
cool.
So
Very cool. I like that
nice,
fan
man.
seating is facing more from like the end zone view, so you can see both fields better. Because
Yep.
down at Walford, you were horizontal
Oh
with it,
yeah, the one.
so
It's
you were
true.
kind of trying to see the field behind where you really couldn't.
Yep.
So that'll be good and bad because you won't be able to see as much of like the defensive setup and stuff. But I do like the ability to see both of those fields a little bit easier. That's cool. That's kind of nice.
I know. It is. So yeah, we'll dive in. At least I will more when we get closer, and I will keep everyone updated of when I'll actually be going down and figure all that
Yeah,
stuff
yeah, yeah.
out.
Because I would love to meet as many people as possible again this year, man. It's really
Yep.
cool to like kind of do an in person meet, even though a lot of us have already met through podcast features and stuff like that.
Yep. I agree. The other, speaking of podcast, the cool thing you did with Alex at the, was it Monday Night Football? So I did the live
Yeah, yeah,
episode
yeah. We went to
or
the
recorded
yeah, we went to the
tailgate.
tailgate, the second biggest. It wasn't the Roaring Riot tailgate, but shout out Roaring Riot, by the way. I got my new stuff, Rebuild the
Love
Roar.
it.
Um Yeah, we went to the other tailgate, Panther Fans, FANZ tailgate directly
Hmm.
behind the Bank of America Stadium. They had awesome stuff, man. Buses with kegs coming out of it, and Panthers potion, which was some sort of concoction that if you have more than one or two, you might not end up in the stadium. You might end up just sleeping on the bus. Um, Met a lot of people out there. We got to do a live episode, interview fans and stuff, and that was just really cool, man. Alex came all
It
the way
is.
down from New York to do that, so that was a fun opportunity.
That was awesome, man. I like that when it was cool just seeing it, the atmosphere, people coming through while y'all
Yeah,
were recording. That's the other thing, like, I wish I lived closer sometimes to be able to do something like that, which
right.
I'm semi-connected to, like, our Roaring Riot chapter in Wilmington, which is super
Yeah.
small, but I've always thought about, well, maybe I could just go out to our location here and do something like that, but
Yeah, you should, man. Try to
it'd be
get I'm sure
fun.
they got I'm sure they have a location where they do their watch parties, right?
Yep.
Go up there and do the watch party, see if you can't maybe get
Let's go.
Mr. Slack from ESPN Radio up there, see if you can
That's
kind of do
right.
a little collaboration and get him to work
That's
with
it,
you, man.
man.
Get some people out there.
Mhm.
Carolina Dad's got some pool, man. Get him out there, Carolina Dad.
It. That's right. Alright, so we talk about training camp. We can't talk about training camp, and I know we're running late on time, so I will try to keep us on pace here to close this out. Can't talk about training camp without talking about roster predictions, and I kind
Sure.
of threw out a very bold, I guess, question to you before the show to talk through maybe a surprise cut, and then
Yeah.
I don't know how to word this. Surprise person that's going to make the roster.
Yeah.
Maybe some folks say, "Yeah, I thought that guy would be cut."
Um, all right. So surprise cut. I have three names that I'll say, but the one name is the biggest name, right? Miles Sanders is
Mhm,
the biggest name that I think has a possibility of realistically being cut. That doesn't mean I necessarily think he will be cut, but my thinking for it is that there's a path. Considering the fact that
mhm,
they drafted Jonathan Brooks, we know that Chuba Hubbard is going to be running back one to start the season. We know that Jonathan Brooks is the guy they want to end running back one, which will put Chuba at two, right? They bring in Rashad Penny. I don't know how serious that is or how much of that is a communication thing like bringing in David Moore just to get familiarity at the position and in the room. But Rashad Penny also has that kick return ability. So
yep,
with the emphasis on special teams, Rashad Penny also has a little bit more home run hitting ability. So if they're looking for complementary styles and more so than Miles Sanders, maybe that works for him too. The other thing that I would point out is Jaden Shurden, the undrafted free
mhm,
agent. He's got some serious game to him, man. And I'm not saying that he's
does.
going to unseat Miles Sanders necessarily, but if they really like him and he wants
Mhm,
to, and he's going to contribute on special teams as well, right? And I don't just mean in the return aspect. He could be a gunner. He can play other roles of it. Um,
mhm,
and then you still have Raheem Blackshear, who was top five in kick return average last season in the NFL.
yep,
Mike Boone is still around. So
mhm,
strictly from a number standpoint, there's going to be some movement in that running back room. So Miles
yep,
Sanders, I think, is the biggest name that could have a realistic path to getting cut. The other two that I'll mention is Jamie Robinson and Chandler
ooh,
Zavala.
ooh,
I think that both of them have prove it capabilities
yeah,
going on right now. Jamie Robinson, I mean, we just brought in Jordan Fuller and Nick Scott in free agency. So
mhm,
he's Jordan Fuller's in by all means and all likelihood the starter. Nick Scott though is a veteran free agent that came in that has some experience. Still have
yep,
Xavier Woods. You still have Sam Franklin, and then you have the undrafted free agent out of Texas A&M, Demani Richardson. That's a guy that's going to compete with him. And then you talk about his ability to play nickel. Well, that's Deshaun Jameson, Show Smith Wade, Troy Hill. Like there's a log jam there.
mhm,
So I think that he's going to have to prove it. And I don't know. He's very good on special teams as well, outside of the returns, but as a defender on special teams. But then you look at Deshaun Jameson, that's a guy that could be your return guy too. That's an electric player,
yep,
and he's more of a takeaway artist on defense. So that's
mhm,
a conversation. Chandler Zavala, man, I get it, dude. Our depth in the offensive line is critical. So it seems funny to say that we would get rid of a guy like Zavala.
yeah,
Zavala did not play well when he was even when he
mm-mm,
was healthy last season. He did not. He was also a fourth round pick from Scott Fitterer. There is no allegiance. Fourth round
mm-mm,
picks are not expected to become the stalwarts of an offensive line. If they did like him a whole lot, I don't think they would have paid $150 million to the two guys that they just brought in. Not to mention the waiver wire. We have number one priority. If a team releases an offensive lineman that they say, hey, we want to upgrade that room, and Chandler, you're the odd man out, I don't think they're going to hesitate to cut that. I think the only reason that would surprise people is because local fans, Wolfpack fans in particular, absolutely love the guy. I liked him. I thought he was a good ball player, but he didn't look very good when he was playing. So those would be the three names I think could get cut.
I like
crazy for any of those?
No, nope. I think Miles Sanders, like if I had to throw out a name right now, he would definitely be at the top. I think Jamie
like
Robinson
Terrace Marshall isn't like he wouldn't be a surprise. Would Terrace Marshall
I
be a
wouldn't say a
surprise?
surprise. No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think you're right.
And that's
I
what I
think out of the,
struggled with. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to even ask, like, would you throw DJ Johnson as a surprise? But
DJ Johnson would be a surprise now, but only because of the fact that we have like 4 people that are already injured coming into the season. So I would be shocked if we got and DJ Johnson just got injured in OTAs. But from all accounts, it sounds very like light. It doesn't seem like something that they're overly concerned about. But my guy Iku Leota, who I banged the drum for to make the 53-man last year, is dealing with a calf strain. He had a calf strain before the draft last year. That kept him out of all the workouts. He has missed the end of his final year at Auburn with a chest injury. So, I mean, his injuries are starting to kind of like stockpile a bit. So, it's just a lot, man, that you're asking for these guys to stay healthy. But DJ Johnson, I think, wouldn't be a surprise based on play, but he would be surprised based on having able bodies in that room. But again, that's one where the waiver wire could definitely play part. And if 3 guys get cut that they really like and they say, we're going to put in waivers on all 3, I absolutely could see them telling DJ, thank you for your time.
See you. Yep. I agree with you, man. I think those names, and I kind of posed the question for you. I haven't thought about it for myself at that level.
I like it, man. Get a little inside look, like ask me, and then that way you can go back and start like regularly taking my stuff apart.
That's it. No. So would you say there is like a surprise
keeper
that maybe would you kind of said Sheridan maybe a little bit as we
I did say Jaden Sheridan. I think that he's a guy that can compete and is going to make everyone's job harder to keep. I won't say that I like believe that he'll make the team, but I would be shocked if they didn't want him on the practice squad and everything just based off of what I've heard about him. Willie Drew, the undrafted free agent out of Virginia State. I've heard really good things about him. I read it was Mike K's most recent article, I believe, and he mentioned Willie Drew twice in it. I'm one of those weird people that takes notice of like how many times somebody talks about a certain person, right? Because it's Alex Bryan actually loves to say this. He's like, when people talk, listen. Yeah, damn it, man. I really wish that I never learned anything from Alex Bryan. This is terrible that this happened. But yeah, so Willie Drew is a guy just because, and the Panthers fans fell in love with Rajon Wright last year, the guy out of the Netflix show Last Chance U, the Oregon State kid. And that was because of the lack of players that we had in that cornerback room. So a similar situation here this year, but Willie Drew has some really good game to him. I wasn't crazy about how Rajon played the game. I thought he was a little bit slight and that he gets bullied and that his ball skills weren't terrific. Willie Drew, man, has a nice size speed combo going to him, good ball skills. I think he's a very willing special teams player as well. So I wouldn't be shocked. Jalen Coker is a guy that everyone loves, the wide receiver out of Holy Cross. I like him, man, and I wouldn't be shocked if he made the roster. But again, he's one of those guys that's going to have to prove it on special teams. All of these guys have to prove their worth on special teams because that's how you get those final roster spots. If I had to dig really deep on guys that would not be special teams players, but could still possibly make the roster strictly for depth at a position, Andrew Rame, the undrafted free agent center out of Oklahoma, I think that just the simple fact that he has taken snaps at the center position gives him a leverage point because no one else on our roster has. Outside of Cade Mays, I believe, is the only one that has. So that's significant. And then Popo Almuave, the nose tackle out of Oregon. And I say Oregon. And people always give me a really hard time about that. It's the weirdest thing that I say, man, Oregon. But we don't have a true nose tackle. And I know that we don't play out of base formation all the time. But one of the things that I thought absolutely devastated this team last year was losing the big man McCall and him being cut. I thought that he was going to be a very significant player. I thought that we got gashed up the middle. Shy Tuttle playing the nose tackle is not the premier position for him, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe having a true nose on the roster is something that appeals to Evero after seeing it not work last year.
Okay, man. I'm guessing you're gonna do probably your 53-man roster prediction. Y'all did that last year, right?
I think we did, yeah. I guess I'm gonna do that. You know, man, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I've been awful but planning stuff out. You sent me like an agenda today of like all the things that you like had on the docket. And I was like, look at that. That's so professional and terrific, man. I get on this thing and I just wing it, man, for like an hour, 2
Just
hours.
go
I
through,
find
like,
someone to talk to, man, and I just go for
it's
it.
it. There are days where I wish I did that, where I'm like, I just want to jump on here and talk about
Yeah.
whatever. I
Yeah,
realize
why
for like
not?
as a solo show, like if I don't give
Yeah.
myself, then I will just rant, and I'm like, all
I,
right,
I I'll give you massive credit, man, because I've done a couple of solo episodes, and
Mhm.
it is a whole different ball game than being able to sit
It
here
is.
and have an organic conversation that can kind of keep you going and flow into another subject.
Yeah.
So shout out to you, man. You do a terrific job. If I had to sit there and listen to myself talk for 45 minutes, and you
You're
do
like,
like
what is
5
this?
episodes a week, man, like you seriously crank content out, dude. I am so impressed by
Just
that. I fall
appreciate it,
into these
man.
lulls where I put like one episode out every 3 weeks, and I'm like, dude, I did that thing. Look at that. Like that
Yeah,
was terrific work. But I also do the
it's
writing and stuff for Cat Crave. So like I
you
try to
do.
balance what I do with my content, you know?
I like it. I do. It's like hit or miss. Like some days I'll go in and I'll feel very motivated. I'm like, I'm going to sit down and I got all these topics. I just
Yeah.
keep like a running list and I'm like, oh, I'll do a video on this. Part of it's just experimenting with the content creation side of like YouTube. And
Yeah.
I know people that follow me know that like for a year or not a year, like 9 months, I never touched video. I never touched YouTube.
Hmm.
And then at the end of the last year was like the whole Tepper thing. I created which one little video and kind of build a little bit of momentum of like 30 subscribers. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe this is something good. Maybe I should kind of
Yeah.
figure out the land of YouTube. But
This
it's funny
seems
you
like this
say,
key opens that door.
right, get to do a bunch
Yeah.
of fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny that you like the way you say you can't do a solo show. I also, from where I've been solo, it's hard. It's not harder. It's taken me a little bit of a groove to get into like, oh, this is how you interview. And this, like,
Right.
I know I needed to do it at some point. So it's
Yeah.
good for me to just start. It was funny because work knows I do this, but they don't know how, like, the level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were like, hey, we're bringing in someone and we need you to interview them for a podcast. I was like, oh, they're like, you do podcasts, right?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah,
I
I
can
do
do that.
podcasts, but it's sports
Yeah.
and I do it by myself.
Yeah.
I was like, so I literally had to like write down this sheet and like think through it. And it was like business related. It was all
I bet you
internal,
nailed
but
it though, didn't you? I bet you nailed
it
it.
was good. It was all right. It
Yeah.
wasn't bad,
See?
but it was different.
You know,
The
man,
other
I
funny
almost
thing,
have to like hype myself up every time. And that's probably what you did in that
mhm,
situation is like I talk myself out of knowing what I'm doing on this more
yeah,
often than I actually don't know what I'm
you do
doing. Like a lot of times, man,
always.
I know I have good points. People for some reason, like I've always been told that I have a radio voice. And I always
You
just
do,
thought it was
man.
people being really mean and calling me ugly, but in like a really nice way.
Hmm.
But it turns out that they were actually saying that I have a radio voice, not that I should be
Positive, yeah.
hiding in the radio. Um, but so like for me, man, that's it. Like I'm just like if I can figure out enough decent things to talk about and I have the one weapon on my side,
Hmm.
I'll go out
You
there for
do.
45 minutes and lay it on the line, you know?
You definitely do. I think just I always like to go into the very deep side of like this thing of like just creating content.
Yeah.
I go through so many cycles of like, to your point, I know that I know what I'm talking about. I know that I feel
Hmm.
good, but then at the same time, one comment can derail it.
Right.
One
Right.
one bad opinion
That's
gets
it.
hung up over the thousands of
And
whatever
man,
likes.
and man, we're all gonna have bad opinions. If you're doing this
Yeah,
and you're putting your opinion out there, trust me, man, you're
yep.
gonna be wrong. I do a lot of like the draft analysis stuff. I
Hmm.
do a lot of scouting and put out like my top 150 and all that. I'm gonna be
Hmm.
wrong on so many of those. Like I know that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? When you put out 150 opinions on something that can be quantified and verified, you're bound to
Yep.
miss, man. Like if you could be 150 for 150, you better be making millions somewhere for a big old
Yes.
network. Like that ain't me though, man. I'm doing this for the love and because I'm a glutton for punishment, apparently.
Baby steps though, man.
Yeah, that's
Like
it.
you put through like who's the guy at the Athletic that does the big thing, the big craft book, the what is he?
Dane Brugler.
Yeah, like you
Yeah.
basically did that this year, right? I mean,
Yeah. I put out my first
pretty
like actual
your
publication
own.
called
Yeah,
Board, that had like the top 50 all had a paragraph breakdown of their strengths and weaknesses, and positional breakdowns and all that kind of stuff. It was intensive, man. It took me about 4 months to like really get everything in place,
wow.
and I watched film for way more than 4 months. But as far as like the actual like physical build of the document,
Yeah,
about 4 months it took to put that thing together, man.
that's crazy. The other thing, so this is personal with the Cat Crave blog. I know you do a lot of
Yeah,
stuff and you post there. Josh, that's right, the main guy that you that's
Dean,
Josh? Dean. Why am I-
Dean, the
What
editor.
is
Yeah, my editor is
are
Dean.
one of those is somebody on there credentialed? I thought they were.
Yeah,
That's why.
yeah.
That's what I
Like Cat
thought.
Crave. Yeah, Dean could be credentialed. Dean lives overseas. He's in the UK.
Got it.
But yeah, Cat Crave as an organization is credentialed. So I mean,
That's
there's
awesome, man.
we could technically, if we wanted to go to the Senior Bowl, you know what I mean. Dean could pass credentials to somebody to go to the Senior Bowl.
Nice. That's what I thought. I just couldn't and
Yep.
didn't know. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we can't close out this episode. This is kind of a I don't even know why I put this on there. It was before I thought we would have training camp and all this other stuff, but
Before
whatever.
I started rambling for an hour,
No,
you thought you were going to be able to whiz through this thing. I told you I'm
it's like
long winded,
a
man.
checklist. You're good. So I want to talk about. So I had Alex Zetlow, and I'm not going to pretend to be as eloquent as him or the folks at the Observer that have been writing and reporting. You're in Charlotte. I know there's a lot of moving parts happening
Yeah.
with the renovations, the proposals, hearing all these people against it. It sounds like it's likely going to get passed. I just had
Right.
this idea and wanted to think through, and you're a citizen like in Charlotte.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law is there. This idea though, as we look over at Kansas City and the Chiefs and the impact of potential relocation, I'm not saying this is going to happen,
Yeah.
but just thinking about what that would do to Charlotte, if this thing does get derailed, which I don't think it was. But when I look over there and I see Kansas, because they're in Missouri, I always have to like
Hmm.
make sure I'm saying that
Yeah.
right.
Right. Right.
Wanting to pull them over, make these lucrative offers. And I think I don't know your stance on this, but I feel like there's going to be other people that would be, or cities, municipalities that would just be up in arms to give the Panthers billions to relocate, whatever it is.
100%.
And I don't know. So I have just like general thoughts
Well,
around the
so
whole
from
thing.
just a basic economic standpoint, when it comes to humans, like not even when it
Mhm.
comes to like the money that you're bringing in for the city and the government and all of that, or the billionaire owner, right? Just
Mhm.
if you break it down to a human level, the amount of jobs that the Carolina Panthers organization, that the facility, that the physical building itself, that the upkeep of that physical building, that the
Mhm.
utility companies that have to hire more people to have more people on call for jobs that are that big and things of that nature. That is something that if you take that away, it devastates a large faction of residents of Mecklenburg County, Union
Mhm.
County, surrounding areas, right? So that's the first thing that I always think of. Now, if you renovate this place and you turn it into a better version of itself, you attract bigger and better things. So everyone wants to point to the fact they're like, well, you're not putting a roof on it, so you can't get a Super Bowl. Not having a roof is not ideal, but it also
Mhm.
doesn't take you out of the running for a Super Bowl. You know what does take you out of the running for a Super Bowl? Being one of the top or bottom 5 stadiums in the league. They're not gonna
Yep.
do it, man. So you gotta have something that attracts. We know that David Tepper has created music and has graciously brought it here to Charlotte. And that's a wonderful thing that he's done for everyone here. I don't know how I lived for the 30 years prior to the Tepper era, just walking around all gray and mundane. No,
Yes.
I give him a hard time, but
Love it.
in all seriousness, too, those concerts they also bring in things, right? They bring in
Yep.
revenue, they bring in opportunities, they bring in jobs. Charlotte FC has done a great thing for this community, and the community has really
Uh,
like rallied behind FC. You make the point though that is the golden point. If you don't want us, if Charlotte doesn't want the Panthers,
mhm.
there isn't going to be some lack of suitors. There is going to be a line of people that say we would gladly take an NFL franchise, especially one that is owned by a $20 billion valued owner. Who cares what he has and hasn't done? He's got the money to do stuff. Now, the funding issue that everyone is mad about, as a citizen of Charlotte, I'm telling you, man, these taxes have already been procured. Like, these taxes are sitting in a fund, and it's not something that, like, if I go to Harris Teeter and buy groceries, I'm going to pay an extra $4 each time so that I can renovate the Panther Stadium. That's not it. It's cheaper than building another stadium. The turnaround is quicker than building another stadium. I personally don't see any kind of huge gripe with doing this. In a perfect world, man, the billionaire would fund everything on his own. But in a truly perfect world, billionaires don't exist, right? Like, all of that money would be equitable for people that need that money. There would not be over 1 million homeless people. There would not be starving children. There would not be people with just disparities in economic, like, equity, right? Like, there is all kinds of things that wouldn't be happening in a perfect world. This isn't one of the ones that I'm going to turn him into the villain from Despicable Me. I will take an opportunity when he presents it, because he does it on his own a lot, man. We don't need to help out. We don't need to force an issue, right? This, I think, is a good thing for Charlotte. As a resident of Charlotte, I support it wholeheartedly. For the people that were like, if we're good enough for Beyonce, we should be good enough for the Panthers. Dude, Beyonce got paid a whole crap ton of money to come here, and she had complaints about the stadium. We barely met the requirements for her to do this. So we're talking about fans that should be able to enjoy it, that are spending their hard-earned money on this stuff. Give them something that's worth their money to go and enjoy their Sundays.
Yep. I'm with you, man. And I always, like, I live in Wilmington, so I tell people that, so it's hard for me. But even, like, Alex, when I was talking to Alex about it too, we were talking about the overall impact, not just of Charlotte, but like the state of North Carolina, state of South Carolina, just uprooting that and what that would do as far as ripping out a team. Yeah. And so
it'd be devastating, man.
It would. So I don't know. I always like to bring it up, especially because it's like the hottest topic. But yeah,
Well, and it's good to touch on stuff that's a little bit deeper, right? Than simply surface level, like, who's going to make the 53. Like, there are the Carolina Panthers, man. They're a huge business, man, and it impacts the economic society of numerous states and numerous cities, and that's people, man. Like, when you put all those figures and those stats up there, it boils down to people, man. And, like, I'm just the kind of person that I don't think that I would have a problem, even if they did want me to pay $3 extra when I go to Harris Teeter. I think that I would do that to keep everyone having their jobs and to keep the Carolina Panthers that I've grown up loving, that I want my son to grow up to love. So for me, man, I will give it because I have the ability, and I just think that's kind of like how that works, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm naive too, but
I agree with you, man. My father-in-law is convinced. Not a big Tepper fan either. He's convinced that they're moving the Panthers to Germany. They're not,
man.
we're okay for right now.
Don't you remember that's what everyone thought about Jacksonville too, though? Is that they were going to move to London,
like UK,
and then their owner, what's his name, Shad Khan, Shad Khan or something like that. I apologize for butchering that if I did. But then he did the same thing that Tepper's doing, where he's renovating their stadium. The other part too, though, is, man, from a historical standpoint, Charlotte sports owners, franchise owners, have been given money to do this before. Like, this has happened in the past. This isn't some new thing that Tepper is trying to do and like beat the system. This is something that Charlotte has set a precedent with our sports franchises in the past. So to me, it's not a big issue, man.
I agree, man. Well, I think we've gone through the gauntlet of everything that I had. I want to let you plug your show, podcast, content. Let's go right ahead, man.
Yeah. First, man, thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate it, dude. You do a great job here. I am really bad about this when I'm doing a show, to tell people to hit that subscribe button, to hit that like button, and to follow on social media. So I'm going to do it for you first. 2 Growls, 1 Roar. At 2, the number, Growls, the number 1, Roar. Follow him on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. and then subscribe to the YouTube page. Carolina Dad is terrific at this thing, man. He puts in a ton of work, and I appreciate very much all the work that you do because I know how much goes into it. And if you liked listening to me ramble tonight and making his nice, tidy 30-minute to 45-minute episodes into a hauling hour and 20 minutes, please follow me at Ricky, RICKY, Bowbody, BOBODDY. That's my handle on just about every platform that I'm on. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at The Bowbody Show. And then you can find all of my written work on Cat Crave blog. Just go on to catcrave.com, look up the About Us, and go to my name, and you can find all of my articles right there. And I hopefully will be a whole lot better and timely about getting those things out. I apologize, Dean.
Love it, man. Hey, I'm going to show people just so you don't have confusion right there. The Bowbody
There it
Show. You
is.
can go out, help him, man. I'm telling you from a content creator standpoint, this man, this show, and Alex deserve way more subscribers than what they have. I will plug it
Thank you,
in
man.
for him to go out there. Same thing on X. I'm going to share just so y'all can
And
easily get to it.
you talk about how difficult it is with the graphics, man. I've been doing all of that on my own since taking over the Bowbody Show and turning it over.
Uh,
It is a difficult thing, man. But once you find stuff that works, you do start to kind of like go into a rhythm. Like
you
I
do.
think that I've started to find some things that work out for at least like my style a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I like your intro.
Thank
I
you.
like the promotion too that you
Uh huh.
do. Like, hey, new episodes out. I
Yeah.
saw you got to use some clips this week. I think that's the
Yeah.
thing is like I've tried this so many times to sit down and like, what are the things that I want to talk about and how do I want to present them? And I just get
Right.
caught up.
Right. No, it's tough, man. And you also, for me, it's like I don't want to over spam like on a certain timeline or something like that, because then if
Yep.
there's something that I like and I feel like it gets buried by the four other messages that I did. So I try to do like one a day type of thing. I probably do it all backwards, man. People tell me all the time,
Uh,
they're like, "Why don't you just plug your own show?" Because I feel weird about telling somebody, "Hey, take an
yep.
hour out of your time to come and listen to me talk." Like, I don't know, man.
Yep.
It's the wrong attitude to
It's so
have, but
hard, man.
yeah,
And just to get to tweet, like I'd rather tweet about something else and say, "Hey, new episode out." It's just hard for me. I'm like,
yeah, me too, me
you'll
too. I
find
get it,
it.
man. Yep,
You'll find
I
it.
get it. Well, look, people are finding yours, man, and they like it. So congratulations on all your success, man. And I really do appreciate having me on. And hopefully we can do this again, man.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, man. Y'all go out, follow, subscribe.